And so this first fight is probably the best in the video in my opinion. And basically, I was in. This is an entry system. I had dragged these guys back from 0-0 into low sec, and it seems like a lot of times 0-0 folks are willing to take gate guns on the other side of low sec gates because they like really want to get you. So that's what these guys do, and then kind of the whole fight becomes about letting the gate guns kill them while I just try to stay alive. So I start out being a little too aggressive. Um, let the hurricane come in real close while I'm close to the harb, which is a nightmare. So then I overheat, start burning away. Realize the harb's not going to go down anytime soon, so then I switch the tackle to the hurricane, which is what I do right now, just to peel him off of me. His DPS goes down quite a bit, even at like 10 or 15k compared to when he's riding close like that. So I just need to get range on him. And luckily, a lot of these nano fits, like the current Flavor of the Week Hurricane fit, doesn't have a way to slow me down really. He's got a long point most likely, but no webs, and the newts don't do much against this harb because it's so cap stable. So off I go, and now I've got range, and now I just kind of skate around out here and let the drones get eaten up by gate guns and let the battle cruisers take as much damage as I can, and then the hope is to kind of dive back in and get tackles when the ships are about to go down. But I think the first mistake in this fight, and there's a few, is that I got way too far away here. I was like so sure that I was going to die that I didn't really switch back to aggressive mode early enough. And the hurricane did a U-turn and kind of headed away from me, I think. So I could have been closer to this harb basically, and that's now I'm trying to burn back close enough that I can get a point. But of course he can just warp, and I don't know why this Drake doesn't do more damage. That it feels to me like the Drake should be able to kill me here, but he's probably just kind of a noob tank fit sort of thing instead of a fit that's got damage. And actually, this is a really nice spot where you can see the overview bug, because the Drake's 10k away from me, even though on the overview it says he's 60k away from me and not moving. That was a little confusing. And then this is the second mistake, and I think one of the biggest, is for some reason I stayed at 10k here and kept Scorch on. I think in my mind what I was doing was I didn't want to get tackled. I like wanted to be on the edge of web range in case I got webbed so I could bolt. But really what I needed to do is get into multi-frequency range and bring this Drake down as fast as I could. Because if I do that, I take a lot less damage while that's happening. You know, he goes down 5 seconds earlier, 10 seconds earlier, which gives me enough HP. You can see that Rifter dive in there, by the way. I just put the web on it so that when the gate guns killed it, I got the mail. But yeah, like here, there's no reason for me to be out of 10k with Scorch. I really should have been closer. Because if he goes down 5 seconds earlier, I'm able to get just a little bit of HP back, and then when the Hurricane comes back to the field and he warped to the Drake, my idea here was I overheat the top rack and hope the gate guns and my DPS with him at close range is enough. And you can see he goes into armor here, but it wasn't enough. And I think if I would have gotten closer to the Drake and brought him down a couple seconds earlier, it might have been enough, and that would have been sweet. But really good fight. Anyway, I mean, it's fun to run around like that and try to do the kite thing, especially when you're in a ship that's not really meant for it, but it works anyway. And gate guns are amazing for that reason. You can always let the gate guns do a lot of work for you. There's a lot less to say in this fight. This is super straightforward, and this is kind of what I was kind of trying to say. My only little motivational piece here is that we do get these kind of fights pretty regularly. I mean, this is a really nice one, but we get a lot that are similar to this and just a little more one-sided, either in their favor or in our favor. And I guess one thing you can take from this fight is when you're in a Vagabond, the Vagabond should be doing what the Cinnaball is doing, you know, staying out at 30k instead of charging in and getting tackled. The other thing you might notice that was weird is we shot a Hurricane for a while and then switched. That's because I thought the Hurricane was not going to aggro and jump back to the other system, so we'd waste all the time shooting it. So we just switched as soon as we got aggro from something else. It turns out the Hurricane did aggro, so we just went right back to it. And the other thing to take from this is I think this gang that we're fighting against is mixed, like has 2 corps or something in it, and they didn't communicate very well. So it looks like I tanked the whole fight, or it sort of looks like that, but actually their DPS was split. So I tanked, 3 of their ships for long enough for them to get organized, and then they switched, and by then we had control of the fight, and they weren't able to kill anything. So, or at least I think they killed a Frigg. Maybe they killed 1 Drake. I don't know. Anyway, but that's just kind of a simple example of why you have to focus. You know, if they all focus me, then I don't make it through the fight for sure. Ferox is great, but it's not gonna tank 5 battle cruisers essentially for more than a few seconds. So big mistake on their part, and then we just wipe the field. It's nice and easy. This fight was, I don't know, it felt so epic at the time. I had a Demos on scan, and I've been jumping this gate back and forth for like literally 10 minutes, keeping the Drake and Onyx on one side and trying to get the Demos near me on the other side. But he never actually came to the grid, and so eventually I thought, well, he must be just goofing, maybe PvEing or bouncing from pos to pos because he had moved, but I could never get him isolated, and so I gave up and just decided to try for the Drake. This is the thing I like least. Like if I'm solo, I really want to be fighting something that I can kill relatively quickly because fights have a way of deteriorating in Eve. So here, taking this Drake and Onyx, it's just I'm in for a really long fight no matter what, and I'm not a big fan of that. Although the active tank does do well in that situation, so that's one thing I have going for me. But there's always the risk that like I won't be able to break a Drake, with the Ferox. It's only 500 DPS, and if nothing else, it could take a really really long time. So, and that's kind of what happened. It takes quite a while. The Onyx is just terrible. I think bringing that ship to this sort of gang, these two guys hanging out, is really worthless. It's really not a very good tackler because it doesn't. This guy especially doesn't have a web, which makes it really bad. The DPS is crap. It's really expensive. It doesn't really do anything for you except maybe catch pods and haulers and stuff. Um, but anyway, it's pretty straightforward. They are wearing me down. And then for some reason, really confusing here, the Onyx turns his DPS off, and I'm not sure what the deal with that is. It could just be a reload, but I thought that was really weird. And then the Demos shows up, and I'm like, oh dang, I'm going to die. And instead, it's a Rail Demos who's staying out at 22k and not doing any damage. And so I would have loved to kill him, but I don't have any cat boosters left. I was sort of thinking I needed to get out anyway, but I think I can tank these two, especially since the Onyx isn't shooting me for some reason. But no cat boosters means I just have to go. And it is important to think about when you can leave. I mean, here's a good spot where it kind of feels like I can't get away, but I actually can. I just have to burn, actually physically burn away from the tacklers, the bubble basically, and then leave. And I think a lot of people might just sit there and like kind of futilely shoot the Onyx for a while before they die. And it's cool to try to figure out if you can get out. And yeah, we actually a lot of the best fights I've had in the last couple months have been these kind of gangs, these little nano Drake gangs. They are so fun. It's tiring in a way to see so many Drakes and Hurricanes, but it is really fun. And I included this sort of as a nod to that because I generally the fights aren't that great to watch, and the best one I think I've gotten to watch where we had two Drakes and one Interceptor and killed like 15 ships. I didn't run fraps for any of it, but I wanted to say something about it because we have been having a lot of fun doing it, and the guys in the Alliance really love it. Even though this was so clumsy in my opinion. Um, why did I switch damage off of the guy that was dying? And um, I freak out because this guy gets close to me, and I like start overheating my stuff, and I'm not shooting the same target the rest of the gang is. We lost a tackler there. I don't know. It's just a mess, but it's really really fun. The cool thing about these kind of compositions, this little nano composition, and we're running it cheap. We don't have any gang links. We don't have anything but just Tech 2 Fit Drakes, is that it gives you a lot of time in the fight. So you get more time to understand what's happening and more time to make decisions and change what you're doing. This fight's a good example. We're spread out over like 70k. The DPS coming in on any given ship is relatively low. It takes a lot of communication because ideally you're well coordinated, and it's just fun. It's just a nice switch from the brawling, the stuff I usually do. And yeah, I think it's cool for new pilots because it gives them time on the field to sort of absorb what's happening and understand like an overarching philosophy about what you're doing in the fight rather than just shooting primaries. So we've had a lot of fun with it, and this was just sort of a quick example. I mean, the guys we fought were fit not as well as us and were less coordinated, so it's pretty straightforward. And here I was really wanting to use some more battleships, and this is more typical old club bear. Like I just jump into a camp with a ship that has a big enough tank to tank it, and they give it a shot, and then we jump into DPS ships, which is really fun. And I do think these kind of ships have a place. Like I haven't seen many battleships. I haven't been using as many as I used to, but I really think this still has a place. All these ships at 20k are doing pretty reduced DPS compared to their on paper DPS. So you can tank for a long time with a ship like the one I'm in, which doesn't have expensive rigs, doesn't have any boosters to go with it, doesn't have any ganglinks. But I can still tank 6 battlecruisers, no problem. And it does mean DPS close, so you can force everything away from you and kill the stuff. You know, like this Hurricane just splats, and that makes it hard for them to break tank on something like this. It's just an easy formula. It's always worked for us. Jump in. It's not bait per se. It's just you choose their primary by putting in the ship you want to tank first. You let it tank for a little bit so they don't want to switch, and then you bring in a couple ships to do some damage and clean the field. And like I said, I've been doing less of that, but I think it's totally viable still. The hard thing now is it's hard to get tackle because a lot of the opposing ships move really fast. You have a lot of Cinnaballs and stuff, and obviously the Rock's never going to be able to hold one of those down. This Hurricane fit, you know, the standard one, the 2 newts and the shield tank is really effective, and I think this kind of shows that in a kind of straight tank and gank situation, it's really solid. But I don't like it. It's not as fun. It's like there's a real inevitability about a fight like this. In the Ferox, you know, I might have been able to do the same thing, or in a Brutix, say, if I'm against a bad Vaga pilot like this who comes in close and lets me tackle it. Not only would I maybe kill the Saber and kill the Vaga, but after that, the Drake's DPS might be low enough that my tank could recover, and then I could go on to kill the Drake as well. Whereas the Hurricane, it's like it's how much can you kill in the time frame that your HP is still there, and that time frame is real set. And actually, the one thing I wanted to mention in that fight is I was really proud of myself for flying around the gate and manually piloted around the gate to get to the Vagabond instead of crashing into it. I was happy with that. But here, you know, my HP's gone. There's just nothing else I can do in the fight, and this is why a lot of my solo fits have an active element, even if it's just 1 rep, which won't happen on the battlecruisers as much, but just something to give me HP recovery late in the fight after a lot of the DPS is gone, because like that Hurricane, it'll lose to a Tyrannus at the end of the fight if, well, it won't lose to a Tyrannus because I'll kill a Tyrannus, but basically if I had an active element, I could turn it around. This fight was hilarious. This is the worst, you know, I was like, okay, I really, really, really want to solo one again because that's what I do. And this was just a complete disaster. I held aggro for a bit here because I'm worried I'm not going to get a tackle on anything. And then I'm like, okay, Saber came in close. I'll kill the Saber at least. And I know I can make the gate because there's no other tackle on the field. Feeling pretty good about that. And then this Hound shows up and bombs all my drones. And my drones are really, actually pretty important. It's a huge chunk of my DPS, and it gives me a lot of flexibility against different kinds of ships. Ships I can't track as well, or ships that are further away, or E-war ships while I'm jammed, whatever. So then I'm like, forget it. I'm de-aggroing. You know, this is a disaster. But then the Hurricane comes in close again, where I can tackle him right on the edge. And so then I aggro, and then he slides out of web range. Anyway, I stay on him. In this range, I'm doing great damage, so he'll either have to leave, or I'll kill him. And then he comes back in, so I get a tackle. So that's fine. And then I get jammed by ECM drones. And this has been my biggest whine lately, is ECM drones are ridiculous. I get jammed so much by lights like this. Thinking of putting smart bombs on everything instead of that heavy newt. And now all the battlecruisers do 700 DPS, so it's really easy to die really quickly. Like this Geddon used to tank so much, and these days with all the Hurricanes, it really doesn't hold up all that long. But, you know, I get another lock, and then again, for some reason, the Hurricane turned his DPS off there. He probably reloaded, I guess. And for some other reason, the Nighthawk leaves point range, so then I get to warp, which is pretty nice when people let you do that. There's really nothing to say here. I hate frigs. I tried to solo. I tried to do some little interceptor soloing, kind of Garmin-esque, with the Crusader, and I'm just terrible at it. I just don't understand what's happening in frig fights for the most part. But I did kill a bomber here with a whole bunch of other stuff around and then leave. I really wouldn't recommend trying to start learning to solo in a frig. I think it's the worst environment. Everything happens way too fast to have any idea what you did wrong, what your opponents did right. It's just super confusing. Here's another example of a really cute little fight that we get from time to time. The Zealot was stabbed there. You can rewind if you want, but I had a point on it, and that's pretty silly. It's just me and a dude in a hurricane, and sometimes there was a while where Quirius came together in this perfect way where there's just lots of ships moving around. It's like the region, there'll be a 2 constellation area that has maybe 30 people active in it, but none of them are really in gangs. They're kind of just doing their own things. And then if you can pick, you get one pinned down and then a couple more come to help, it's just perfect. And I don't think Quirius is really like that right now, but it was for a little while, and that was really fun. And this is just really weird. I have this tendency when I'm in a nano ship to always think burning away from the gate is the right thing to do. We were running from this gang, and the right thing to do would have been warp away from the gate. Instead, I tell everyone to align it and burn. I don't know why. We're against this huge nano fleet with logistics. There's no way we're going to kill anything. And then, for some reason, I get webbed by a Loki here and still make it out of web range, even though he's moving faster than me at this point. And so then I start burning again. I think, oh, I'll pick off a saber because there's a chance I'll kill that before I die. And then there's this Vaga here at 10k away from me who doesn't have a point, so then we're able to warp off grid. And actually, in retrospect, I think we could have kept burning and maybe killed some more stuff, but whatever, that's just bizarre. And yeah, so here, this was awesome. I came into the system that has a 250k width, warped into this drag bubble. It had a rifter in it. I killed the rifter, and then right after the rifter died, this Cinnaball landed in the bubble with me. And it was just cool because obviously a ship that has 1 screen for tackle should never kill a Cinnaball, but sometimes when you find some cool map geography like a drag bubble that's outside of scan range, it's possible to pin someone. And that's what happened. I just barely caught him, and then it's pretty easy. And I just love killing Cinnaballs. Falcons used to be my favorite thing to kill, and Cinnaballs now are right there with them. But I really can't give enough praise to the Ferox. It's just perfect. Everyone will engage it all the time. It performs really well. It performs better, just below the Drake and Hurricane, and considering how little respect it gets, that says a lot. And it's got that active element, which can mean a lot in a longer fight. And then, yeah, this is just, like I said in the thread, I found this to be pretty silly. Although, one thing I wanted to say is that I don't think a Scorpion is silly. I posted in some Reddit thread about a Battle Scorpion instead of an ECM Scorpion and got totally yelled at. And it's really, really good. I mean, it does like 700 DPS. It's got plenty of mid slots to do whatever you want. You can really make a nasty tank. You can have a micro warp like this one has. You can have ECCMs. You can have lots of tackle. It's super flexible. Everyone expected to do ECM, so even if it doesn't do ECM and they say, okay, it's a bait Scorpion, they still don't really know what it's doing. They still will underestimate its DPS, its speed, its, whatever, everything. And so I really like it. I used it a lot, and I couldn't get it killed. It's the first ship I've had in a long time that made it to its insurance expiration because it just never died. But the fight itself, there's this LeBeau. It's like one guy who 4-boxes battleships, and we fought him a few times, and they remote rep. And actually, one thing I can say in this fight is that being in this alliance of new pilots, this fight's an example where I'm doing a lot more losing than I used to, and some of it can be placed on the lower amount of skill points and maybe a little worse range management or target calling. These new guys do funny stuff sometimes, but we're having a ball. I mean, we way come out on ISK here. Like you can see Drake, Hurricane, Vexor is our gang basically. We don't lose the Scorpion. I think we lose 3 battlecruisers and the Vexor. So it's like a 150 mil lost, and we kill 3 battleships. 4 battleships maybe. It was like Scorpion, Dominix, Abaddon we killed, plus some more. So we came way out on top for ISK. We had a really long, fun fight. It was just really solid. And I think a lot of people could be doing this. Should have killed the Hugin in this fight. But yeah, there's not too much to say. Unfortunately, with the remote repping and kind of a big battleship tank like this guy's got, there's no way the Scorpion alone is going to... I wanted to be able to break the Dominix at the end. That would have made the trip back into the bubble seem worthwhile, but couldn't quite do it because my DPS isn't big enough. And so that pretty much wraps it up. I mean, again, this I I guess the thing you could take from this is you can leave a lot of the time. I think a lot of time people get into a fight and they're just there. But in these small fights, a lot of times there is exits available. And another thing you got to think about is that if you start to take an exit, you'll notice a lot of time that the amount of damage you're taking changes a lot, and so you don't even have to leave the grid. A lot of time, just getting 40k away changes everything. But anyway, that'll do it.